Without conscious thought, Sam's calloused hand reached across the space between them, fingers gently brushing a strand of hair from Emma's face. Her breath caught as his touch lingered against her cheek. "I didn't plan on this," he whispered roughly. "Nor I," Emma replied, her hand covering his, holding it against her skin as though it belonged there. "Been afraid for so long. I forgot there were other ways to feel." The moment hung suspended between them, until 3 sharp knocks at the door shattered it like gunfire. From outside came Harlan Thornton's cultured voice. "Mr. Blackwood, I believe you're harboring a thief. I've come to collect what's mine." The Wyoming wind howled like a wounded beast, rattling the shutters of Sam Blackwood's isolated cabin. 8 years in this desolate stretch of territory had taught him to ignore such sounds. He stoked the fire with mechanical precision, each movement practiced through countless solitary evenings. The bottle of whiskey waited on the rough-hewn table, his nightly ritual to keep the ghosts at bay. Sam glanced at his reflection in the small cracked mirror above the wash basin. 34 years had carved deep lines around his eyes. The face staring back belonged to a stranger. No trace remained of the young man who'd ridden with the Hawkins gang, whose quick draw had earned him the nickname Ghost for how quietly he moved and how deadly his aim. His monthly trip to Broken Pine yesterday had left him uneasy. Marshal Jenkins had watched him too closely in the general store, and whispers followed him down the street. News had spread of Thornton's men roughing up Weber over a land dispute, another small rancher being squeezed by the cattle baron. None of his concern, Sam reminded himself. He'd built this life on minding his own business. The cabin's single room contained everything he needed: stove, bed, table, chair. Simple, controllable, safe. The past stayed buried as long as he remained alone. A sound interrupted his thoughts, different from the wind. Sam's hand moved instinctively to the Colt revolver at his hip. He remained motionless, listening. There it came again, a faint knocking at his door. No one visited Sam Blackwood, not ever. He approached the door cautiously. Weapon ready. The knocking came again, weaker now. Sam unbolted the door and pulled it open against the gale. Cold air rushing in. A woman stood swaying on his porch, her clothing torn and inadequate against the bitter cold. Her face was gaunt, dark hair frozen in tendrils around a face that might once have been beautiful before desperation carved its mark. But her eyes, intelligent and determined despite her condition, reminded Sam of someone, himself, 8 years ago, when he'd arrived on this land with blood money and nightmares. "I'm dirty, poor, and barely alive," she whispered, her voice cultured despite her ragged appearance. She gripped the doorframe to remain upright, knuckles bloodied from pounding on his door. Sam hesitated. Whatever trouble followed this woman would become his if he helped her. 8 years of carefully constructed peace hung in the balance. Behind her, the snow swirled in the darkness, already erasing her tracks. Her lips were blue with cold. Another minute outside would kill her as surely as whatever she was running from. Memory flashed. A young bank teller in Clearwater, pleading for his life before Hawkins shot him. Sam had stood by, done nothing, the first of many ghosts. "So was I once," Sam finally replied, stepping back from the doorway. "Come inside." She stumbled forward, collapsing as the door closed behind her. Sam caught her before she hit the floor, surprised by how little she weighed. Her skin burned with fever despite the cold. As he carried her to his bed, a leather satchel clutched tightly against her chest caught his attention. She gripped it even in her half-conscious state. "Name's Sam Blackwood," he said, though unsure she could hear him. "This is my land." "Emma," she managed, before her eyes fluttered closed. "Emma Harper." Sam covered her with his only extra blanket and returned to stoke the fire higher. As the woman's breathing steadied in exhausted sleep, he checked his ammunition and latched the shutters tightly. With those 3 words, "Come inside," Sam Blackwood had broken 8 years of carefully constructed solitude. By morning, he'd discover exactly how much that moment of compassion would cost him. Dawn broke with tentative fingers of light through the cabin's shuttered windows. Sam hadn't slept, spending the night in his wooden chair, Colt revolver across his lap. The woman, Emma, had passed the night in fevered delirium, clutching her satchel even in unconsciousness. Sam had attempted to pry it loose once, hoping to make her more comfortable, but her grip had tightened with surprising strength, her eyes flying open with such naked terror that he'd immediately stepped back. "Nobody's touching your belongings," he'd promised, hands raised in surrender. Whatever she carried was worth dying for. That much was clear. He rose stiffly, muscles protesting the night in the hard chair. The storm had passed, leaving an unnatural stillness across the landscape. Sam stoked the fire and put coffee on to boil, moving quietly as Emma continued her restless sleep. Sam examined her more carefully in the growing light. Her hands, though chapped and raw from exposure, showed no calluses of hard labor. Her torn dress, though filthy now, was of fine material. Her unconscious murmurings revealed an educated accent entirely out of place in Wyoming territory. This woman had come from money, education, civilization, everything Sam had left behind years ago. By midday, her fever broke. Sam had spent the morning tending his small herd, ensuring the cattle had survived the blizzard. When he returned, stamping snow from his boots, Emma was awake, propped weakly against his pillow. "Water," she whispered, her voice cracked from thirst. Sam poured a cup from the bucket near the stove, supporting her head as she drank. She swallowed greedily until he pulled the cup away. "Not too fast," he cautioned. "You'll make yourself sick." She studied him with caution, one hand still clutching her satchel beneath the blanket. "How long have I been here?" "Since last night. Storm's passed." Emma attempted to rise, then collapsed back against the pillow, her face paling with the effort. "I need to leave," she said, frustration edging her voice. "Thornton's men are looking for you," Sam stated flatly, watching her reaction. Fear flashed across her face before she controlled it. "You know who I am?" "Only your name. But there's talk in town. A woman stealing from Thornton." Sam ladled stew into a bowl. "That complicates things." Emma accepted the bowl with shaking hands. "Do you mean to turn me in?" Sam considered her, remembering his own desperate flight years ago. "No, but I need to know what kind of trouble you're bringing to my door." "The kind that's worth killing over," she answered, meeting his eyes directly. "I can leave tomorrow if you'll loan me a horse." "In your condition, you wouldn't make 5 miles." Sam sighed heavily. "Stay until you can ride, then we part ways." Days passed in uneasy coexistence. Emma regained strength slowly, insisting on helping, despite her weakness, washing dishes, mending a shirt Sam had torn. Her movements around his small cabin were precise, educated, at odds with the rough-hewn furniture and primitive conditions. On the 3rd day, as Emma folded his spare clothing with an efficiency that spoke of her former life, hoofbeats approached. Sam motioned her to silence, peering through a crack in the shutters. "Marshal Jenkins," he muttered. "Get under the bed, quick." Emma slid beneath the narrow frame just as boots thumped on the porch. Sam composed his features and opened the door. "Marshal," he greeted flatly. Jenkins removed his hat, snow-dusting his graying mustache. "Blackwood. Surprised your place is still standing after that blow. Takes more than wind to knock it down." Sam reluctantly stepped aside. "Coffee?" Jenkins entered, eyes scanning the small space with practiced attention. "Don't mind if I do." Sam poured coffee, hyper-aware of Emma beneath the bed, just feet away. "What brings you out this way? Cattle all accounted for." "Looking for someone." Jenkins warmed his hands around the mug. "Woman. About 30. Dark hair. Might be injured. Stole some important papers from Thornton." "Haven't seen anyone," Sam replied. Expression neutral. "Storm would have killed anyone on foot last night." Jenkins' gaze lingered on the extra bowl by the wash basin. "You entertaining Blackwood?" "Just me." Jenkins finished his coffee and rose. "Thornton's offering $200 for information. That's a lot of money for a small rancher. I manage." At the door, Jenkins paused. "Funny thing about tracks. Snow covers them up, but it also shows where they stop." His eyes met Sam's. "Be careful whose fights you pick. Blackwood. Your past don't stay buried forever." After the marshal's departure, Emma emerged from hiding, trembling. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet," Sam replied, watching dust from Jenkins' horse disappear down the trail. "He'll be back, and he won't be alone next time." A week after Emma's arrival, the routine at Sam's cabin had shifted imperceptibly. Sam rose before dawn, checking the perimeter before tending his cattle. Emma followed hours later, her strength returning gradually. They moved around each other with cautious awareness, like wary animals sharing a den. Sam watched from the barn as Emma hung his laundered shirts on the line, her movements betraying her upbringing, precise, efficient, nothing wasted, not a frontier woman's gestures. She caught him watching and offered a tentative smile that disappeared when he didn't return it that afternoon. Sam found her behind the cabin, awkwardly attempting to chop wood, determination overcoming her lack of strength. "You'll hurt yourself," he said, taking the axe from her hands. "I won't be helpless," she replied, a flash of pride in her voice. "Show me properly." Sam hesitated, then positioned her hands on the axe handle, adjusting her stance. "Plant your feet wider. Let the weight of the axe do the work." Her back pressed momentarily against his chest as he guided her through the motion. The scent of his soap in her hair caught him off guard, the intimacy of sharing such basic provisions. Again, she insisted, after her first successful split. By evening, a small pile of kindling stood testament to her persistence, though her hands were blistered raw. "Why did you help me?" Emma asked that night across the table, breaking their usual silence. "You could have left me to die, or collected Thornton's reward." Sam considered his answer carefully. "Man's entitled to his choices. That's not an answer. It's all you're getting." Sam rose to check the shutters, a habit born of years of vigilance, from the ridge above his property. Sam spotted riders the next morning, 3 men, Thorntons by their horses and gear, surveying the valley below. He ducked behind an outcropping, watching as they studied the scattered homesteads. Their methodical inspection suggested a search pattern. They were working their way toward his cabin. When he returned, Emma had reorganized his kitchen shelves, transforming chaos into orderly rows. His irritation flared until he realized he could now find everything at a glance. "Thornton's men are searching the valley," he informed her, watching her hands still on the tin cup she was drying. "3 riders, working a grid pattern. They'll be here within 2 days. "I should leave," Emma said, her face tight with resolve, despite the fear in her eyes. "And go where?" "In what condition?" Sam gestured to her still thin frame. "You need skills to survive out there. Can you shoot?" "My father believed daughters should be educated completely," she answered with unexpected steel. "Including how to defend themselves." Sam retrieved his old Remington revolver from beneath a floorboard. "Let's see." Behind the barn. Emma surprised him. Her stance was textbook rather than practical, but she hit 3 of 6 cans at 20 paces. "Not terrible," Sam acknowledged, "for a city woman." "I can improve," Emma said, reloading with careful precision. "I'm a quick study." That evening, Sam caught Emma examining a faded photograph he'd carelessly left visible, himself alongside his brother from before the Hawkins days. He snatched it away, but not before recognition dawned in her eyes. "You're hiding too," she said softly. Not a question, but a recognition. Their eyes met across the small cabin, the silence between them suddenly stripped of pretense, 2 fugitives recognizing their own kind. Despite all the differences that should have kept them strangers, "Reckon we all got something we're running from. Miss Harper," Sam acknowledged. "Question is, what happens when it catches up?" The next day brought Sam's captured Mustang bucking and snorting into the corral. Emma watched from the fence as Sam worked with the animal, his movements gentle despite his size, his voice a constant soothing murmur. The wild horse gradually accepted his touch. Intelligence recognizing patience. "You have a gift with wild things," Emma observed when he joined her, a thoughtfulness in her tone that suggested she included herself in that category. Before Sam could respond, both their heads turned toward the distant sound of approaching horses. Through his spyglass, Sam counted 6 riders cresting the eastern ridge, the winter sun glinting off rifle barrels. "Thornton's men," he confirmed grimly, closing the spyglass with a snap. "And they're not coming to pay a social call." Emma's hands trembled as she spread the documents across Sam's table, ledgers with falsified entries, land deeds with forged signatures, letters ordering necessary removals of stubborn homesteaders. The lamp cast long shadows across the weathered wood as night settled around the cabin. "I was hired as governess for Thornton's children 6 months ago," Emma began, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. He presented himself as a gentleman rancher, cultured and refined. His library rivaled those in Boston. Sam leaned against the wall, arms crossed, face unreadable. "His wife died last year. The children are difficult, but kind underneath." Emma's fingers traced a document. "I found these by accident. Thornton left his study unlocked one night after drinking heavily. I was looking for a book when I discovered a hidden compartment in his desk." "Curious sort, aren't you?" Sam remarked. Emma met his gaze unflinchingly. "When you've lost everything once, you learn to stay alert to threats." "What did you lose?" "My parents, our home, my future." Emma's voice tightened. "Fire took them when I was 22, left me with nothing but an education and debts." Sam's expression softened marginally. "This one," she continued, pointing to a familiar name, "the Weber family. Their cabin burned last spring with them inside. Thornton called it a tragic accident." Her eyes lifted to Sam's, feverish with purpose. "I was there when he ordered it done." Sam stared at the evidence before him, pieces clicking into place, the neighboring farms abandoned, families disappearing in the night, Thornton's empire growing with each passing month. "This is worth killing for," he said quietly. Emma nodded. gathering the papers back into her satchel. "Now you understand why I can never stop running, and why you should have left me in the snow." Sam pushed away from the wall and poured 2 fingers of whiskey into tin cups. He handed one to Emma, who accepted with surprise. "Your plan?" he asked. "Get these to Judge Hargrove in the territorial capital. He's the only one not in Thornton's pocket." Sam's laugh held no humor. "You'd never make it. Thornton controls every road from here to Cheyenne." "Then I'll die trying," Emma said with quiet dignity. "Some things are worth dying for." Sam studied her, seeing past the refinement to the steel beneath. "Dying doesn't help those families get justice." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the crackling fire. Finally, Sam crossed to a loose floorboard near the bed. He pried it up, revealing a small cache beneath, a Winchester rifle, ammunition, maps. "Wasn't always a rancher," he said, not meeting Emma's eyes. "Rode with the Hawkins gang, 5 banks across 3 territories." Emma's breath caught. "The Hawkins gang killed people. 7 men, by official count." Sam's voice roughened. 8. Actually, they never found the 8th. "What happened?" "Clearwater. Last job. Supposed to be easy. Small bank, minimal security. Went wrong." Sam stared into the fire. "Hawkins shot a teller. Young boy, begging for his life. Then a woman who screamed. Then anyone who looked at him wrong." Emma remained silent, watching his profile. "I rode away that night, with my cut." Sam's jaw tightened. "Blood money. Bought this land with it. You've been hiding ever since." "Surviving," he corrected. "Paying penance my own way." Emma set down her untouched whiskey. "We've all done things we regret. The question is, what we do afterward." Sam looked at her sharply, surprised by the lack of judgment in her voice. "Most women would run from an outlaw's cabin. I'm already running from worse." Emma replied simply. Their conversation halted at the sound of a rider approaching. Sam extinguished the lamp and moved to the window. Rifle ready, Emma tucked her satchel beneath the bed. "Weber's boy," Sam identified with relief, recognizing the slight figure despite the darkness. The youth dismounted, face streaked with tears beneath his hat. "Mr. Blackwood, Pa's dead. Marshall says he cleaned his gun wrong, but Pa never—" The boy's voice broke. "Ma says we got to clear out by week's end. Thornton's buying the place." Sam's expression hardened. "Get home to your ma. Thomas, tell her. Tell her I'll come by tomorrow." After the boy departed, Sam turned to find Emma watching him, understanding in her eyes. "He had 3 children," Sam said grimly. "Thornton is accelerating his timeline," Emma observed. "He knows I'm still in the area." Sam unrolled a faded map on the table. "There's another way to Cheyenne, an old hunting trail through the high country. Dangerous this time of year, but Thornton's men wouldn't know it." Hope lit Emma's face. "You know this trail?" "I do." Sam's finger traced the route. "I'll take you there when you're strong enough." "You'll take me?" Emma echoed, surprise evident in her voice. Sam met her eyes across the map. "Maybe it's time I fought for something worthwhile." Dawn painted the eastern sky crimson as Sam and Emma crested the ridge above his property. 3 days had passed since Weber's boy delivered the news of his father's death. 3 days of preparation, planning, and growing awareness of each other that neither acknowledged aloud. "We'll cache supplies here." Sam indicated a sheltered outcropping. "First leg of the journey takes us through Blackfeather Pass. If the weather holds, we can make it before the next snow." Emma memorized the landscape, committing each landmark to memory. Her strength had returned remarkably. though Sam noted how she still conserved movement, calculating each action with precision. "I've been thinking," she said, as they buried a small bundle of provisions. "The evidence would still matter if something happened to me. You should know what's in those documents." Sam paused in his digging. "Planning on dying, Miss Harper?" "Planning for contingencies, Mr. Blackwood." Her gaze held his steadily. "Something I suspect you understand." That evening, Emma spread her documents on the table again, methodically explaining each one: how Thornton had diverted streams during drought years, forcing desperate farmers to sell; how he'd forged signatures on deeds; how accidents befell those who refused his offers. "Memorize these names," she instructed, indicating families displaced or killed. "And these dates. If the papers are lost, your testimony might still matter." Sam watched her hands moving across the papers, noting their newfound strength and lingering elegance. "You've got the mind for details. When you've been a governess to 3 different families, you learn to keep track of everyone's secrets," Emma replied with unexpected humor. "Children and wealthy men have that in common." Later, rummaging through his trunk for extra ammunition, Emma unearthed a battered harmonica. "Yours?" she asked, brushing dust from its surface. Sam's expression tightened. "My brother's." "May I?" At his curt nod, Emma raised the instrument to her lips, producing a tentative, sweet melody that filled the cabin with unexpected warmth. "My brother played," Sam explained, voice rough with memory, the most personal revelation he'd offered. "Before the fever took him." "What was his name?" "Michael. Fever took him and my parents when I was 17. Farm went next." Emma continued playing softly, the simple tune opening a space between them that words couldn't navigate. When she finally set the harmonica aside, the silence felt different, no longer a barrier, but a shared comfort. "We leave tomorrow before dawn," Sam said, checking his rifle's action for the 10th time that day. 2 horses, minimal provisions. Speed matters more than comfort. "I'm ready," Emma assured him, her posture straightening with resolve. Sam found himself studying her profile in the firelight, the determination in her jaw, the intelligence in her eyes, the way the flames cast copper highlights in her dark hair. When she turned and caught him watching, neither looked away immediately. "Why are you helping me?" she asked again, echoing her question from days earlier, but with new meaning behind it. Sam considered his answer carefully. 8 years hiding from what I was. Maybe it's time to choose what I'll be instead." Emma's hand covered his briefly where it rested on the table. "I'm sorry about your brother, about your family." The touch lingered. When their eyes met, neither looked away. Sam felt something shift inside him, a dangerous warming he couldn't afford, yet couldn't bring himself to reject. "Emma," he began, her given name feeling intimate on his tongue. She leaned slightly toward him, the space between them charged with unspoken possibility. "Sam." His calloused hand reached across the remaining distance, fingers gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. Her breath caught as his touch lingered against her cheek. "I didn't plan on this," he whispered roughly. "Nor I," Emma replied, her hand covering his, holding it against her skin as though it belonged there. "Been afraid for so long, I forgot there were other ways to feel." The moment hung suspended between them, until 3 sharp knocks at the door shattered it like gunfire. Sam was on his feet instantly, revolver drawn, motioning Emma to silence. "Behind the stove," he whispered. "Tunnel entrance is beneath the loose board if things go wrong." Emma gathered her satchel, pressing herself into the shadows as Sam approached the door cautiously. From outside came a cultured voice that turned her blood cold. "Mr. Blackwood, I believe you're harboring a thief. I've come to collect what's mine." Harlan Thornton himself stood on the porch, flanked by 5 armed men, their horses stamping in the gathering darkness behind them. Sam's expression hardened into the gunman he once was. His decision made in that instant, there would be no surrender, no negotiation. He caught Emma's eye across the cabin, a wordless communication passing between them. Whatever came next, they would face it together. "Evening, Thornton," Sam called through the closed door, voice deceptively casual. "Kind of late for social calls." Outside, boots shuffled in the snow as men positioned themselves around the cabin. Sam caught Emma's eye. Tilting his head toward the rifle propped by the rear window, she moved silently to retrieve it. "I think we both know this isn't social, Blackwood," Thornton replied, his cultured voice at odds with the menace it carried. "Miss Harper has something that belongs to me. Return her and the documents, and we can avoid unpleasantness." Sam winked at Emma, raising his voice. "Miss Harper? Don't know any Harper, and I don't appreciate armed men surrounding my property." "Don't play games," Thornton snapped. "My men tracked her here days ago. Marshal Jenkins confirmed it." Emma positioned herself at the rear window, rifle steady. Sam nodded approval before calling out, "Your business is with me now. Miss Harper's already gone with your papers, headed to Judge Hargrove with everything she knows." A pause, then angry muttering among the men outside. Thornton's voice tightened. "I don't believe you. Blackwood, the passes are still snowed in." "Not all of them," Sam replied. "Not if you know the mountains like I do." The first shots came without warning, aimed at windows, testing defenses. Sam dropped to the floor, returning fire selectively, conserving ammunition. When 2 men attempted to approach from the south side, Emma's shot struck one in the shoulder, sending both scrambling for cover. "Good shooting," Sam approved, surprise and admiration in his voice. Emma's hands trembled slightly, but her expression remained resolute. "First time I've shot a man. You winged him. He'll live to regret coming here." As darkness deepened, Thornton changed tactics. The smell of smoke reached them before they saw flames licking at the barn's roof. "Distraction," Sam muttered. "They'll rush us from the north while we're watching the fire." Sam dragged the heavy trunk aside, revealing the trap door to the root cellar. Time to disappear. Take only what matters. Emma clutched her satchel as Sam grabbed his rifle and ammunition. They descended into the cramped space beneath the cabin floor, Sam pulling the trunk back into position above them using a rope system he'd installed years ago, paranoia from outlaw days now proving prescient. The root cellar connected to a narrow tunnel that emerged behind a false rock face 50 yards from the cabin. They crawled through dirt and darkness, Emma following Sam's boots ahead of her. Neither speaking. Behind them, muffled shouts and gunfire continued. They emerged into the bitter night air as flames fully engulfed the barn, casting eerie light across the snow. The horses, thankfully, were tethered in a small copse beyond the property line, Sam's escape plan long established. "Stay low," Sam whispered, leading Emma in a crouching run toward the horses. They'd nearly reached them when a shout went up from the cabin. They'd been spotted. Bullets whined overhead as they mounted. Sam boosting Emma into the saddle before swinging onto his own horse. They thundered away into the darkness, the mountainous terrain their only advantage against pursuers who knew the territory. They rode hard for hours, following game trails and frozen creek beds to mask their tracks. The moon emerged from behind clouds, casting silver light across the landscape. Only when the horses began to falter did Sam signal a halt in a sheltered ravine. "They'll have split up to search," he said, helping Emma dismount. Her legs buckled beneath her, muscles cramped from the punishing ride. Sam caught her before she fell, her body momentarily pressed against his. "Thank you," she whispered, steadying herself but not immediately moving away. "Not safe yet," Sam reminded her, though his arms lingered around her waist longer than necessary. They made a cold camp, unable to risk a fire. Sam shared jerky and water while they listened for pursuit. Emma memorized the stars overhead, another way to navigate if needed. "How far to the judge?" she asked. Voice hushed. 3 days hard riding, if the weather holds." Dawn revealed their breath in the frigid air as they prepared to move on. Sam studied the terrain ahead through his spyglass, then froze. "Riders," he muttered. "3 of them, cutting across our path." Emma's face paled. "How did they get ahead of us?" "That's Thornton's son James," Sam realized, recognizing the distinctive chestnut horse. "Must have guessed our route and circled wide." "What now?" Sam considered their options. "We split up. I'll lead them away. You continue to Cheyenne." "No," Emma said firmly, surprising him with her vehemence. "We stay together." Before Sam could argue, a shot cracked across the ravine, splintering bark beside Emma's head. They ducked for cover as James Thornton's voice rang out. "We have you surrounded, Blackwood." Sam caught Emma's eye. "Trust me?" he whispered. At her nod, he raised his voice. "Hold your fire." Sam emerged slowly, hands raised, rifle conspicuously slung across his back. "Just want to talk, James, man to man." James Thornton approached cautiously, revolver trained on Sam's chest. His 2 companions flanked him, rifles ready. "Where's the woman?" James demanded. "Safe," Sam replied, then moved with the lightning speed that had earned him his outlaw reputation. Before James could react, Sam had disarmed him and spun him around as a shield, revolver pressed to his temple. "Call off your men, or this gets messy." Simultaneously, Emma appeared on the ridge above, rifle aimed at the companions. "Drop your weapons," she ordered, voice unwavering. The ensuing firefight was brief but intense, working in perfect coordination without words. Sam and Emma managed to capture James while driving off his companions. One fled with a bullet in his leg, the other abandoned his friend without hesitation. James, their hostage and leverage, seethed with rage. "My father will kill you both," he promised coldly. "Maybe," Sam acknowledged, binding the young man's hands. "But your father taught you to play chess, didn't he? Sometimes you sacrifice a piece to win the game," with James secured on his own horse. They continued toward Cheyenne, now with a valuable hostage and the knowledge that Thornton himself would surely follow. As if summoned by the thought, a lone figure appeared on the ridge above them at dawn the next day. Even at a distance, the commanding posture was unmistakable. Harlan Thornton had arrived alone, unwilling to risk his son's life with hired guns. The final confrontation was about to begin. Harlan Thornton descended the ridge alone, his black stallion picking a careful path through the snow. The morning sun glinted off his silver hair and the elaborate engraving on his saddle. A man of wealth, even in this desolate place. Sam kept his rifle trained on James, while Emma held the evidence satchel. "That's far enough," Sam called when Thornton was 30 yards away. Thornton reined in, his aristocratic features composed despite the situation. Only his eyes betrayed his rage, cold, calculating, measuring the distance to his son. "Release my boy," he demanded without preamble. "After we reach Judge Hargrove," Sam countered. Thornton's gaze shifted to Emma, who met it unflinchingly. "Miss Harper, I welcomed you into my home, trusted you with my children." His voice hardened. "And this is how you repay kindness, with theft and slander? In the harsh landscapes of life, it is often our wounds that define us, until we allow another soul to see beyond them. The frontier of the heart remains the most challenging territory to claim, requiring more courage than facing any outlaw or weathering any storm. True redemption is never found in isolation, but in the brave act of opening ourselves to connection despite past failures. The strongest people are not those who never fall, but those who rise again with the wisdom their scars have taught them. We are all, in some way, dirty, poor, and barely alive until we find the courage to step through another's door or to open our own. Second chances aren't granted. They're claimed through difficult choices and the willingness to fight for something beyond mere survival. The most profound journey is always the one from solitude to connection, from shame to acceptance, from existing to truly living. And perhaps the greatest act of courage is believing we deserve the love we're offered, even when our past whispers otherwise. Thank you for traveling this frontier with us. If this journey resonated with you, please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to join us for more stories that explore the untamed territories of the human heart. And follow our channel for weekly tales of redemption, courage, and love against all odds. "I saw the ledgers," Emma replied steadily. "I know about the Webbers, the Hansons. All of them." Thornton's mask slipped. "You think any judge will believe a thieving governess and an outlaw? I know who you are. Blackwood. Sam Ghost Blackwood of the Hawkins gang. 5 banks robbed. 7 men dead." Emma's shocked eyes found Sam's. This final piece of his past, now revealed. 8 men, Sam corrected quietly, "and I've paid for each one every day since." Thornton sensed the opening. "Miss Harper, this is the man you've thrown your lot in with. A murderer playing at redemption." Emma's voice remained steady. "I see a man who chose to change, unlike you, who chose to become a murderer for profit." Thornton's composure broke. He drew a hidden derringer, aiming not at Sam, but at Emma. Sam shoved her aside as the shot fired, taking the bullet in his shoulder. In the chaos, James broke free, drawing his own weapon. What followed was a desperate struggle, Sam wounded, but fighting with the skill of his outlaw days, Emma using terrain and quick thinking to evade James. When Thornton cornered Emma at the ridge edge, Sam made an impossible shot that disarms Thornton without killing him. As Thornton lunged for Emma in desperate rage, his momentum carried him toward the ridge edge. Sam caught him one-handed, his wounded shoulder screaming in pain. "Let me fall, and all this dies with me," Thornton hissed. "That's the difference between us." Sam grunted, holding on until James helped pull his father to safety. A distant bugle call announced approaching riders, territorial marshals wearing federal badges. A Shoshone scout led them, catching Sam's eye with a brief nod. Sam had sent a message through his old friend days earlier, an insurance policy he hadn't told Emma about. 3 days later, they sat in Judge Hargrove's chambers in Cheyenne. Emma had testified while Sam waited outside, his own outlaw past now exposed and freedom uncertain. When Emma emerged, Her eyes found his immediately. "The judge wants to see you." Inside, Judge Hargrove, a hard man with just eyes, studied Sam. "Miss Harper has told me everything about Thornton, about you." Sam stood straight, despite his bandaged shoulder. "I don't deny what I was." "Interesting," the judge mused. 7 years since the Hawkins gang. Statute of limitations for your specific crimes runs 8 years in this territory. Convenient timing." Sam blinked, uncomprehending at first. "The territory owes you and Miss Harper a debt," Hargrove continued. "The governor has authorized restitution for Thornton's victims, including return of stolen lands." Outside the courthouse, Emma took Sam's hand. "The Weber children will have their home back. All the families will." "And what about you?" Sam asked, suddenly uncertain. With her mission accomplished, this educated Boston woman could return east to civilization. Emma's fingers tightened around his. "I was thinking Wyoming might need a schoolteacher. That land of yours could support a proper house alongside that cabin." Snow began falling gently around them, not the threatening blizzard of their first meeting, but soft promise of renewal. "It's not much," Sam cautioned. "A small ranch, a reformed outlaw." Emma's smile held everything he never dared hope for. "It's enough, more than enough." As they rode toward home, a word Sam could finally embrace, the Wyoming landscape stretched before them, harsh but beautiful. Like their journey, like their love, in the harsh landscapes of life. It is often our wounds that define us, until we allow another soul to see beyond them. The frontier of the heart remains the most challenging territory to claim, requiring more courage than facing any outlaw or weathering any storm. True redemption is never found in isolation, but in the brave act of opening ourselves to connection despite past failures. The strongest people are not those who never fall, but those who rise again with the wisdom their scars have taught them. We are all, in some way, dirty, poor, and barely alive until we find the courage to step through another's door or to open our own. Second chances aren't granted. They're claimed through difficult choices and the willingness to fight for something beyond mere survival. The most profound journey is always the one from solitude to connection, from shame to acceptance, from existing to truly living. And perhaps the greatest act of courage is believing we deserve the love we're offered, even when our past whispers otherwise. Thank you for traveling this frontier with us. If this journey resonated with you, please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to join us for more stories that explore the untamed territories of the human heart, and follow our channel for weekly tales of redemption, courage, and love against all odds.